Yeah, welcome along to Monday Night Rugby. Richie McCormack here with you, and we're in Six Nations mode. It gets underway this coming weekend, and Ireland, of course, away in Cardiff on Sunday, taking on Wales. Joined on the line, I'm delighted to say, by current La Rochelle head coach, former Ireland number 10, Ronan O'Gara. Good evening, Ronan.
Hey Richie, how are you?
And joining us to look ahead to the Welsh game as well, I'm delighted to say, is the ex-Wales and Lions man, the scrum half extraordinaire that was, Mike Phillips. Mike, you're welcome to the show.
Hi, how's things?
Not too bad. I believe you two boys, before we delve into the minutiae
it's a big entry for Mike, Richie, isn't it? The extraordinaire Mike Phillips.
Well, listen, Ronan, I'm only paying back for your, how are you? Yeah, grand. You know,
Okay,
so, you know, I'm paying you back in kind. But you two fellas kind of know each other pretty well. You were sworn enemies at one stage on the pitch, and that kind of all changed in the 2013 Lions tour. Tell us a bit about it, Mike.
Never heard of him.
Mike, tell us a bit about the old enmity between the two of you.
Never heard of Ronan, no. Yeah, we've had some great times together over the years, and obviously he was a coach in Racing then in the end, and yeah, he's a great man. He's a great player on the field. Obviously, it's and off it. He's a great guy to be around as well. So many happy memories with Rog.
Ronan, were they always happy memories?
Of course not, no, but that's sport. It was, there's a great saying about Filsey. He's just, you want him in your team, you don't want to be playing against him. He was a competitor. It helped too when he was a foot taller than most of us, and he was swatting us away, as he'd tell you. But it's I think, when you mature and you get a little bit older, you appreciate these kind of friendships that rugby gives you, because when you're in the heat of battle and you've medals and all that stacks up for a while, but afterwards it's kind of all about memories. And I ended up, I suppose, having a really love-hate relationship with Mike for many years. But Wales and Ireland went hard at each other for a number of years, and people talk about Ireland's World Cup and never getting to a semi-final, and we had an opportunity in 2011. We'd won our 4 pool games, as everyone knows, and we played Wales and Wellington in the quarter-final, and it just shows, we probably fancied it, but took your eye off the ball and thought you were already in a semi-final, with no disrespect to Wales, but that's where our confidence was, and what an opportunity lost. But that's the competitive side of it, I think, from a friendship point of view. We played against each other an awful lot, and we were obviously near each other because 9s and 10s cross a lot, but Mike enjoyed tapping a quick free kick or penalty and running over me many a time. So, but we always had good fun afterwards.
Mike, what was the Welsh view of that Ireland side in 2011? We'll move on to the present day in a moment, but I'm curious to see, as Ronan mentioned there, having won all 4 pool matches, coming off that great win against Australia and all that kind of stuff. How were Wales viewing Ireland in that World Cup?
Yeah, it was a great side they had then. I mean, Rog, Paul O'Connell, Brian O'Driscoll, Tommy Bowe, all the legends were in that team, and they were all playing well. So that was a massive game, wasn't it? And it was a huge victory for us. We luckily got over the line in the end, but that World Cup was, I guess from Ireland's point of view, a bit obviously disappointing. But then, we went on the next game, and we didn't do a job on a team that we were better than, really, the French side. So disappointment really, that World Cup. Looking back, but what could have been. But that was a tremendous Irish side, and that was a huge win for us. We kind of felt that we were in a good place going into the semi, and then, we didn't quite manage to get to the final. So, huge disappointment in the end.
Your friendship was galvanised, I guess, from those Lions tours. I want to touch on the Lions first of all before we get into the meat and potatoes of the Six Nations, because there's plenty of talk of whether or not this thing will go ahead as planned. Ronan has talked that it could possibly, Australia could host it. They could get crowds in. Alan Quinlan this morning was saying that would absolutely benefit everybody if South Africa could essentially ship themselves over to Australia for these tests. They actually have some fans in front of them. Everybody ends up making a bit of cash out of the whole thing. It would seem like it's the ideal solution to this. I don't know how you feel about it, Ronan.
Yeah, I think it is a solution, but I think it removes, I think, a massive advantage for South Africa if they're playing in Australia. For them, I think it's a little bit backward in the fact that an awful lot of, I suppose, things are accepted on the way to grounds that wouldn't be accepted normally, in terms of, like, you actually do get pelted with oranges, and you do get abused coming off the bus, and you do get shouted at, but not in a vicious or in a kind of a threatening way. But there's that hostile environment when you know on certain grounds there that you're going to be kind of verbally abused from the stand, and that happens in some games too. And I think that tests you as a person, as a competitor as well. And I think for us, Lions tours was going into the Lions Den, essentially going to test yourself right in the bear pit of a country's home ground, but obviously in the middle of a pandemic, and if the game is on its knees, this is something that has to be, I suppose, contemplated. But for me, the ideal situation is if it can't be played this year in South Africa, it would be great that you just do it next year in South Africa. But behind closed doors, I think, doesn't appeal to anybody, especially to players, and they're not pieces of meat. They need to be really well looked after. So hopefully, for me, it will be South Africa this summer, but if not, South Africa the summer after, and then potentially the option of Australia as a backup if the finances are that stretched.
Mike, how would you see this one going?
Yeah, I think it's a shame. I think it's great to the fact that in 2009 they were the World Cup winners as well, so that was fantastic to go down there and try and beat the world champions, obviously in the Lions series. And yeah, it's the same thing now. So it'll be a shame if it's held somewhere else. And it's all about the fans, isn't it? And that's what it's all about. Testing yourself in front of huge crowds. You are you're an entertainer. And, playing rugby, you're an entertainer. You want to show off your skills against the very best in the world. It's not the same without these crowds. So hopefully, it can be held in South Africa, which would be perfect. But I guess it's all up in the air, really, isn't it? So we have to wait and see.
Mike, on a spectrum of forefronts to the back of your mind, when you're at this point of the season and you're heading into a Six Nations, how much are you thinking about a Lions tour, if at all?
Yeah, I think you are, really. I think because you obviously without France, but you're going up against. I did used to sort of think about it. I did used to go up against, okay, I'm playing England now, wherever that may be, the nine, and if I get one up on him, then, I'm in a good place. And, you don't make it a huge focus, but it's around the corner. And, it's a massive carrot, isn't it? It's what you want. It's the best of the best. It's such an amazing tour to be on. So, yeah, it was in the forefront of my mind, and I will sort of, you playing against Scotland or Ireland or whatever, you pick them off, you try and beat your opposition, and then you've got a good opportunity to be on the tour. So I did personally used to think about it, yeah.
Ronan?
Yeah, I think that was exactly something that's not talked in probably an awful lot by current players or ex-players or something. But I would say, yeah, from 24 months out or 2 years out, you already have kind of a roadmap potentially about what you need to do to get onto the tour and who your real competitors are, because like from 12 months to kick-off time of the tour, you're kind of either reinforcing the selector's thoughts, or you have to make a mad late push, and that's not an ideal situation to be entering it if you want to be playing in the tests in the Lions, which after a few years you do want to be doing. So I would say all the players they'll never really admit it, but they'll be kind of, if you're ambitious and if you want to test yourself against the very best, that's exactly the tour you want to be on. And it only comes around every 4 years. So within 2 years, the most definite kind of plan about, I have to get on this tour and I'm going to do whatever it takes. As Mike says, some guys can get in there through starting in European Cup campaigns, but the easiest way is to get the better of your opponent in a test match in the Six Nations, because the Six Nations are different again to autumn internationals. So this window of 6 weeks is probably the most impressive or the most opportune time for current test players to really Copperfast in their place.
Yeah, and we're heading in now, of course, to the opening weekend of the Six Nations. It is a pretty mouth-watering clash between Wales and Ireland this coming weekend. Ronan, we had you on last week talking about Jonathan Sexton's potential role within the Ireland side in a best-case scenario when Joey Carberry is fit. It's something we put to Jonathan when he was on with Ger on Friday night, and he was of the opinion that, listen, it's not for me to say what my role is going to be. All I have to do, or all I want to do, is keep myself fit, keep myself involved, and get as much game minutes as I possibly can, because I want to be out there. Do you understand where he's coming from on that front, that he doesn't necessarily see transition in his future?
Of course, yeah. He's controlling the controllables, and for him, that's getting the best out of his body, getting the best out of his teammates. He's the captain, he's the key man, and I think everyone in Irish rugby and associated with Irish rugby realises his importance, and his importance is probably the most important player in the next 2-month window, because when he's on the pitch, Ireland have a better chance of winning, and that's the reality. What is harder is to be able to maintain an 80-minute game week after week. That's very difficult when you push on and you hit 35 or 36, which Johnny will be soon, but it's not knocking him in anything like it. It's just when Joey Carberry isn't there, there's probably a gulf in class to the next guy, and probably for test rugby, when you need short-term results, the gulf is probably too big. But Johnny doesn't control that either. What Johnny controls is his performance and his preparation, more importantly, and he's done that impeccably for a long period of time. It's just Father Time catches everyone at a certain stage, but who's to say that it mightn't be for another 18, 24 months?
Mike, what's the realistic view from Wales on Jonathan Sexton? What do they view as his strengths and weaknesses over there?
Well, I got to play with him in Racing in France, so that was a bit of an experience. It was good. He's emotional, he's a winner, he's a competitor. So I guess he obviously he's been fantastic for Ireland for the last couple of years, and he's a director for them. He leads the ship, and he's the main man. He's the main focus. He's very emotional. I think you can probably get under his skin at times, try and knock him off his game. But yeah, no, he's a figure point, and I'm sure perhaps they will try and get under his skin a bit, try and rattle him a bit, get him on the floor, try and keep him out of the game, because everything goes through him. And now he's captain again. There's even more pressure on him. So I guess Wales will try and put as much pressure on him as possible, really.
Is there an over-reliance, do you think, on Sexton?
Pardon?
Is there an over-reliance on Jonathan Sexton's role on the side?
Is there a what, sorry?
Over-reliance. Do they rely too much on him?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be that great on topics of Leinster the last few months, to be honest with you, or Irish rugby in general, really. I haven't really seen much of it, but from what I know, he's a fantastic leader, but you need lots of leaders in your team as well, and that time when, talking about Rochell now, they beat us 2009 for that Grand Slam. You've got to have leaders throughout the whole team, in your pack, throughout your back line, for that comfort, for that experience, so you need to share that sort of responsibility at times. So, and great sides have that. So I don't know, that's a tough question. You look at the great Irish sides, you got Rog, you had Brian, you had Paul, 3 great leaders there. I mean, they'd come together and make good decisions, If you're passionate, sometimes you can, like I used to do at times, you make the wrong decision because your passion doesn't sort of, being too passionate at times can lead you down the wrong road and make poor decisions. But, he's very experienced. He's got a wealth of experience now, and I'm sure he's got his leaders around him, with him to support him, and they're a great side. They dominated Wales's pack really in the last November series. So for me, the game, Wales really have to win ball against Ireland, otherwise they're going to struggle.
Yeah. Ronan, was he always this quiet and this cagey when you were around him in the Lions tours, Mike Phillips?
No, it's I think it's midnight in Dubai, is it? And
It
I
is.
don't know, was Mike up late the night before, or is he just on his way home after another night out? But no, he's perception is the same as Johnny a little bit as well. It sometimes isn't reality. I think it's hard in a snapshot sometimes to get the people, get the best out of them, and I think that's why for me and coaching Racing was so fascinating with the different people you got to meet and to really understand them and appreciate them and get to know them. And Johnny was one of them, Mike was one of them, Joe Rockakoko was one of them, and it's very, very important. I think Mike's point just about who's coming to help Johnny and who's going to, 66 minutes into a game and it's an intense game, he needs those other boys stepping up to him, because there's a little bit maybe like Paulie in the fact that Paulie would be potentially known for his emotional speeches, but that's 1% of him. I think it's the same as Johnny. Johnny sometimes would be seen as a cold person, but he's incredibly warm and friendly when you actually spend time with him, and that can come out in the pitch as well. And I think it's a time for him in this Six Nations to show how good he is and how much he still has to offer, but he can also do that with the cold-blooded mentality, but with also that level of enjoyment, knowing that this doesn't last forever. And that's the discussion I'd be having with Johnny, because he is a great guy, and I think he needs to show that as well.
Getting back to that Lions tour, the World Cup in 2011, when the two of you came up against one another, I believe that was your 50th cap, Mike, that day when Wales saw off Ireland. There was something of a function afterwards, and that man in France decided to make a holy show of you on the day.
He knows it's the 50th cap.
Yeah, I mean, that was a disaster. Obviously, it was a great game for us. I managed to score as well. But yeah, it was my 50th cap, and Rog
Talk
gets
us through that try, actually. Talk us through the try, Mike.
Sorry?
Talk us through the try, please. It's not as if you don't remember it.
One of my better ones. No, well, obviously, the game was pretty good. Obviously, the try still stands, so I guess it was a try. I have lots of fun, having fun with Tommy Bowe over the years, sending in pictures pretty much every week. Afterwards, there was an after-match function, and Rog gets me up to sing, and that was a disaster. I'm not a great singer at all, so very embarrassing for me that was. But nevertheless, it was a good victory for us, and we were quite happy on the day.
Ronan, what did he sing? Or do you even remember?
No, I don't. I was red for him, though.
That's a terrible position to be trying to put somebody in. It's like, just go, sing. Mike, you could have said no.
It'd be a tradition, Richie. He's not giving you the full picture here. It was all set up for Mike to steal the show, but for the one time in his life, he got a little bit frightened and didn't take the open goal, because I tell you, he doesn't need a second invitation most of the time.
That was a disaster.
That's the kind of stuff that we don't like, because we hear about this Ireland-Wales rivalry, and it's gone back, gone plus 15 years, and different coaches have fed into it, different players have fed into it. But there's this other side of rugby that we're not privy to, which is these functions after the matches, which is the get-togethers around Lions tours, etc., that kind of builds these bonds between players, Ronan, that we don't necessarily get to see the other side of, and that's what ye happen to take away from the game as much as you're playing, like the actual minutes on the pitch.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's great, because I suppose we're a bit of an odd couple, Filsey and I, but we were roommates in the Lions as well, and I kind of remember I think it was my third Lions tour in 2009, so we went into Pennyhill House to check into the hotel, so I didn't check who I was rooming with, because I kind of knew a lot of international players at that stage, and I thought it was a bit of a big dog, so okay. But it was at that stage I was I think I played Mike 3 weeks previously in a Well, what game was it, Filsey? Because it couldn't have been a competitive game because the Ospreys wouldn't have been involved at that stage, would they? So
No, it was when you won the Six Nations.
I went into the room and I just opened the door and just dragged in the bags because you got all your stash. You were delighted, so you're dragging bags with you, and in you come. And I just had a look over on the bed, and who's on the bed but Mike Phillips, and I was like, we hadn't spoken. That was probably a long time that we hadn't spoken, 3 weeks at that stage. So the two of us just broke out laughing. But I also managed that Mike was already set up, and he was I think his bedside locker had great mementos of his loved ones, of his family. I was there, Mike. You're after. You've just left Wales 2 hours ago, and he was homesick. So he had his pictures of his loved ones all over his bedside locker. It was like, fast forward till the first piss up, and they were all knocked off. He was like, "What are they doing there?" I said, "I didn't put them up, Mike. This is your room." So it's he's a beauty.
Mike, you've got right to reply here. What kind of a roommate was O'Gara?
Sorry?
What kind of a roommate was Ronan?
Yeah, no, it was great times sharing with him, and we argued. I remember the 2006 game, 2009 game, going for the warm up, and my ball went into the Irish half, so I had to run past Rog, and he gives me a lot of verbals, and I wasn't expecting it, and obviously I've gone and picked my ball up, and then I'm going back to the Wales half. So by this point, the red mist has come down on me as well. So I've given him some verbals back, and then I've gone into the change rooms and told the boys, and like all the boys are just laughing, couldn't believe it. And then then we were sharing, roommates, and we just burst out laughing straight away as I walked in the room, and then we inseparable then on the tour. So it was good times.
Ronan,
can I just go on? He's crying over there. I got to go in. I'll be 2 seconds. Okay?
You go on and take care of that. I'm going to ask Ronan here about this coming Sunday, because it is a pretty big game for both sides. Both sides have a point to prove. Johnny, when he was on Friday, said that they were pretty pleased with how their autumn went. That will kind of go against the public perception of how Ireland's autumn went, which said it was okay, fair to middling. We'll say coming off a fair to middling year. What's your expectation of this Sunday, Ronan? How do you see Ireland setting about this game? And ultimately, we're going to work towards a kind of a score prediction on this one. But what do you want to see from Ireland this Sunday?
Yeah, there's so much in this question which I don't think has ever been for a first-round game of Six Nations, because there's massive, I suppose, excitement. Maybe I'm overly excited because Paul is involved, and I think I know how good he is, and I know how much better he will make a lot of players. I think he has a great ability to communicate very simply and give his message very simply, which is important in rugby. And I feel that Wales are, since I've been playing professional rugby, are involved in it. There's so many questions for Wales to answer that they never had. Obviously, with Warren Gatland leaving, it's a massive void, but their form has never probably had so much question marks over it, and Wales have been very, very good for a long number of years, obviously, culminating in 3 Grand Slams. But this home game for them is absolutely massive, and it's an obviously huge game for Ireland, because the first game in the Six Nations gives you momentum, as you know, and then it will fire you into a French game at home full of confidence. But if you weren't to get the result, it makes it a very difficult campaign all of a sudden, which is a horrible feeling after one game only. So I think where Ireland have got success, I think they've manhandled Wales up front, and they've got the better of them up front, and you can say that applies to every game. And I still really do believe that a solid scrum and a solid line out and winning collisions, the back should be able to get your team over the line with that kind of a platform. I think you don't need more than parity against Wales in that regard, but I think Ireland have shone against Wales when they've decided to take them on up front, and with that will be interesting to see how they'll, I suppose, launch their maul and how they go about. I suppose they've been effective with the scrum, and two areas that I don't have much expertise on, admittedly, but they're areas that are hugely important to the game of rugby, and those points about being strong in your basics, coupled with a little bit of, I think, potential to play more what you see under Andy Farrell. I think that will suit Ireland well. I think hopefully I know it's early February, but the roof may be closed. If it's closed, so you can play ball, and that will suit, I suppose, teams that want to put tempo into it. And Hugo Keenan at 15, Larmer on the pitch, Earls on the pitch, Ringrose on the pitch. I think there's a lot of sprightly players that we have that we can change it up. It'll be fascinating for me just to see how they, I suppose, go about attacking. Do they try and play the ball out of the tackle, or will they play a more ruck game?
If I was to push you for a score prediction, Ronan?
I think it'll be close. I'd probably go maybe 28-22 to Ireland. Okay, so we're looking at a high-scoring affair come Sunday. Ronan, thanks for that. We'll let you go. Mike, before you go, I just want to get a feeling and a sense of how Wales are heading into this Six Nations campaign, because obviously the last year or so hasn't been kind to Wales, particularly since the departure of Warren Gatland, but there were certainly green shoots in the autumn. Those games, both against England and against France, they may have been losing efforts, but there was enough from both to suggest that there is something stirring in that Welsh side. What are the confidence levels like from the Welsh public's perspective heading into this weekend?
Well, the levels of I don't think the fans, to be honest, would be too confident. I think, but you got to look at the regions. You know, the regions have been pretty poor. And I feel sorry for Wayne Pivac, really, because, you know, there's the base of the standard of play isn't really good enough at the minute, and that they need to up their game. But I think in terms of the November period, I think he did it as a bit of a trial period, and he sort of gave a lot of opportunities to players. Certainly, you know, at scrum half, and I think he picked a new scrum half every single game, which you need a bit of consistency. It's so important to have that consistency at 9 and 10 in any quality side. So in order for confidence to grow and get that stability. So, you know, I think for me, you know, having Thomas Williams fit, I think he's going to be the first choice, and he's vital for Wales, I think. And then you've got Gareth Davies perhaps coming off the bench and being a real threat in the last he's a real match winner by himself in the last 20 minutes. So I think it'd be nice to see that sort of partnership, or that sort of those two having those roles. And I think, you know, the Welsh back row is really good. It's strong with Josh Navidi coming back in, Tipperick and Faletau. But I guess, like I just mentioned, you know, Ireland's pack dominated the scrum last November. So, and winning the ball in the line-up's been an issue for Wales. So, you know, with Paul O'Connell coming into the Irish setup, it's a bit worrying for the Welsh pack in particular. But, you know, there is some star quality there, you know, Tips and Faletau, and some real game breakers there. I'm behind as well. So, but I can't see, there hasn't been enough evidence to say that Wales are going to win this game, unfortunately. So I can see an Irish win, unfortunately. I'm
getting the sense from you that the Wales that we see now and the issues that Wales are having is not necessarily just born of the fact that there's been a change of coaching staff. This kind of goes deeper than that, and that the regions, the provinces have struggled to get themselves up to a certain level that maybe the Ospreys did in your time. What would be the solution to that? Do you think adding these 4 Super Rugby sides from South Africa is going to manage to raise the game in Wales in terms of competition week in and week out, or is there a more root and branch kind of appraisal needed?
That's a huge question. I think, you know, certainly now when you see the results, I mean, no Welsh team ever goes anywhere near beating the likes of a Leinster. You know, they haven't done that for many, many years, I don't think. And, you know, I just see it bizarre in a way. You know, I think the standard has dropped down so much, you know, and it's, it is worrying. Do you know what I mean? I think the way in which the system is in Ireland is obviously producing far greater youngsters, and it's with the schools, and I think so they've got a great sort of development path. I think we've got to really look at our roads of development, and things need to improve. There's a big drop off, I think, after the in the 20s. A lot of players go missing in Wales, so we really got to. I think there's bigger issues below the national squad. I think it's about development and making sure that we get better at that sort of part of one's career, really, because we're the region, the standards. We only had one team in the top tier Europe last year in the Ospreys, and they were the worst side in the competition. So that says a lot, really. You need to be playing. I know that Rog made fun of the Ospreys then, but we had three regions playing top flight of Europe when Gats came in, and when he left, there was only one in there. So that's what Wayne Pivac has to pick from. He's not really, I don't think, picking the same quality of players.
If I was to ask you, because Roger's gone for a high scoring but a pretty tight game, if I was to ask you for a prediction for this Sunday?
I think it'll be 25-15 to Ireland, unfortunately. Hopefully I'm wrong. But I think they're going to be just a bit too strong. Yeah.
Listen, Mike, you've been very kind with your time, and with the family and all that. We wish you all the best over there, and thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us this evening.
Cheers. Thanks guys. Thank you very much.
There you go. There's Mike Phillips looking ahead to Wales versus Ireland this coming Sunday. More to come after this.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Hate missing out? News Talk Extra is news, entertainment and all the latest podcasts, plus expert tips and competitions straight to your inbox. Subscribe now at newstalk.com/extra.
The Sky sale is now on. And who doesn't need a pick-me-up at this time of year? So get award-winning Sky TV and our best ever Wi-Fi with ultra-fast broadband together from just €50 a month for 12 months.
Well, that's nice.
That's a feel-good saving from us. So save big on the Sky sale. Search Sky 50 today. Offer ends 11th of February. New Sky customers only. Availability subject to location, minimum term and further terms apply. For more info, see sky.ie/speeds.
Sustainable living? Own it at Experts Electrical Stores nationwide with Bosch. Save water with Bosch IDOS washing machine smart automatic detergent dosing. Save energy with their perfect dry dishwasher technology. Save waste and keep food fresh for longer with Bosch VitaFresh fridges. Live like a Bosch at your local Experts Electrical Store and expert.ie.
At SuperValue, we believe in keeping our communities safe. That's why we'll continue doing all we can to ensure that you get your shopping as safely as you can. From priority shopping times for the elderly and vulnerable, priority online delivery slots, and a contactless click and collect service, to providing sanitizer stations, contactless payment, and limiting numbers shopping in-store at any one time. Rest assured, we'll always do our best to ensure that we get through this together. Because at SuperValue, we believe in our communities.
Love. It's the biggest, most important thing you can send someone. And yet, it fits neatly on a postage stamp. With love stamps from An Post, you can share the love with family and friends every time you post.